Hey everyone, we are going to start off with some hands-on lectures, doing things a little bit different with starting off with Java and arrays. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Eclipse, and as we've been going through this textbook, we're on chapter 7, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new Java project. We're going to call the project name chapter 7 hands-on lecture. And accept all the default values. Go ahead and close everything. We're going to create our classes in this default package space. Just going to say new Java class. And we're just going to call this array demo. Just try and get some of the basic concepts down dealing with arrays. Some of the theory here is that a primitive data type like an int, my variable can only hold one value at a time. Well, if we make an array, so this is a primitive only one value at a time. An array can hold multiple values at a time. So we might have an array of integers, and that's how this right here is how we determine that it's an array. That's how you can see that it's an array in the code. We'll call this numbers equals new int. Now inside the second set of brackets here, this is our size of the array. So in this case, these arrays, or this array called numbers, is going to hold 5 values. Now to put values into the numbers array, so this line here, this will assign values to array elements. We know that there are 5 elements because we declared that right here. The way those are numbered are 0 through 4. Numbered 0 through 4. And if you've ever taken a programming class before or not, this is something to get used to. We start our counts a lot of times in development world with 0. So we might say numbers sub 0, which is the first position, and we might give it a value of 5 or a value of 500 or whatever, 550. Notice here this is an integer array, so we cannot put any sort of decimal on it. That won't work. It has to be whole numbers. Same thing if we had an array of doubles called values equals new double. Let's say this one holds 100. Now our values array, the first element can hold, okay? Can hold a decimal. That would work fine. But keeping it simple here, we'll just, this is declaring and assigning. This is the declaring portion. This is the assigning portion. We declare an array and we dimension it with 5 elements. This is assigning a value. And then the next part is to, you declare an array, you put something into it, and now we have to retrieve values. So how to read values out of the array. You put something in, and then you got to put something out. Well, put something out, we got to put it somewhere. Where's it going to go? Well, we're going to put it to the screen with the print line, and we're going to print out numbers sub 0. Pretty basic stuff here, but just getting kind of arrays 101 down, And if we run this, you can see whatever value we put in gets printed out to the screen. So just as do a couple other ones, 700, pretty basic stuff. One of the benefit of an arrays is it can really help you save time. If you have 100, 100 ints, well, typing this line of code for 100 variables is a lot quicker than if you were going to say int num1, num2, num3, num4, num5, all the way to 100. So it definitely saves time in the coding world when you're working with a lot of data that gets stored in variables. It saves time. Then also to save time in putting data in, we're going to use loops. So now we have 100 elements that we need to put data into, and so we're going to use a loop to help us repetitively put information into the array. Another thing that's nice about arrays is that they're stored in contiguous memory space, meaning they're all stored in RAM kind of right next to each other, which is good for speed. Putting data in and pulling data out happens faster if it's all in one spot in memory. It can happen a lot faster versus, if it was kind of scattered or fragmented throughout RAM. If you have 100 different variables, not an array, but if you have 100 different variables, there's no guarantee that they're stored right next to each other in RAM. So it might be, the theory is it could be a little bit faster if you use an array. But to finish off where I kind of left off here, talking about, hey, we've got 100 numbers now, and this is much faster from a programming standpoint to create 100 numbers. Well, instead of just assigning numbers, same thing here. If we had to say number sub 0 equals this, number sub 1 equals this, numbers sub 2 equals something else. Oops. Learn to type. Okay, number sub 2 equals this. This is just as tedious as what I was saying before when if you had to create 100 different independent variables. So as I was leading to before, we're going to use a loop um, to help us not type as much code, right? So we're assigning values to array elements. Now I'm going to say using loops. And the popular structure is a for loop to help us put data into an array. And for loop is popular because we know exactly how many elements we need to put in. They say a for loop is a count controlled loop. So you could say something like integer I, which is your control variable, and you want to start it off at 0. Typically, when you're working with arrays, we're going to use this variable here as our subscript. That's something I didn't say earlier. For example, numbers sub 0. That's the first element in the array. Well, number sub 0, this right here is our subscript. This would be numbers sub 5, numbers sub 10. Which another thing I didn't mention, since there are 100 elements, this is going to go from numbers sub 0 all the way through numbers sub 99. That's 100 elements. If you count 0, you only go up to 99. And if I demonstrate a common programming mistake is numbers sub 100, that actually doesn't exist, right? That would be the 101st element. So if I try and put a number in there, that's going to it should error out. It's not erroring out here. I imagine when we go to print that out or use that is when it's going to error out. That shocked me a little bit that didn't error out, but for the sake of this example, this is. bad because, again, there's only 100 elements 0 through 99. So I'll come back to that. Weird. Anyways, back to my loop. So we're starting our count off at 0, and we're going to say for integer I equal to 0 while I is less than numbers dot length. If there are 100 elements, this is going to loop from 0 through 90 through 99 because numbers dot length is 100. Numbers dot length equals, that stores the number of elements in the array. So numbers dot length is 100, and what you're looping from 0 through less than 100. Well, less than 100 is 99. 100 would stop the loop from running. And then we're going to increment I each time. And all I'm going to do is assign numbers sub I equal to, and I'll just keep it simple and say I. If we wanted to, if we want to assign every element equal to 5, that's fine, right? So this statement says, hey, the first element sub 0, number sub 0 equals 5. Then you increment I. And it says numbers sub 1, right? Because 0 incremented once goes to 1. Number sub 1 equals 5. Number sub 2 equals 5. And we're assigning everything equal to 5. If I said number sub I equals I, well then it'll be, the first position will be equal to 0. Number sub 1 will equal 1. Number sub 2 will equal 2. And we'll just slowly increment all the values. And the values they store will be the same as their position in the array. So this is a much more condensed and nice structure for putting data into arrays as compared to what I showed before, where you just have to type out 100 different lines of code to put data into an array. Now the next thing here is you can use a for loop the same way to get data out. So if I type this up, which by the way, you could simply say I less than 100, right? But the idea here is if we change this to 105, this loop will account for that change. This loop will not account for that change. So that's why numbers.length is better practice, right? Plus plus I. And all I'm going to do here is do a system out print line. Numbers sub I. And again, this is going to print out number sub 0, sub 1, sub 2, sub 3, sub 4. And up here we assign them to have their values equal to their position in the array. And then down here we just print that out. So if we run this, there you can see this accounts for 105 elements, 0 through 104. Let's see what happens if I say less than or equal to, right? Because that will cause us to print out that element that doesn't, I said I'd come back to it, right? So when I said there were 100 elements, that was position 0 through 99, and I got confused because when I said numbers sub 100 equals some value here, it actually worked. And this is demonstrating that when you try and print out that value, it wouldn't work, that 100th element. So let me kind of back up here because I just jumped through a lot here without explaining what I was doing. So this is kind of where we were before. We got 100 numbers, 0 through 99 are their positions. If I assign here and have it actually put data into that 100th element in this for loop, and then we try and print that 100th element off here, you're going to get an off by 1 error. And the reason I show this is a common mistake. There's 100 elements, 0 through 99. You don't want to put data into that 101st element at position 100. Okay, so we're going to stop here. It's about 15 minutes. I want to keep my first video short. We'll pick back up with another video next.